Good evening and a very warm welcome to First Issues. One of the things this country can boast of is the achievement of universal access to primary education, which provides a strong basis for the higher goal of 10 years basic education. According to the Ministry of Education and Skills Development, from 1995 till 2000, the estimated net enrollment rate for children aged 7 to 13 was consistently above 95%, peaking at 100% in 1999 and 2000. The foundations for a fully literate society have been laid, and it is now up to the public to fully utilize these resources to the best of their abilities. We all bore witness to the excitement and stress of parents buying school uniforms, books and pens just a few weeks ago in preparation for many children's first day of school. Whether the big day turned into a colossal explosion of tears and tantrums, or was filled with happy tears and anticipation, largely rests with the days leading up to it and how well parents and guardians prepare young children for this major transition. Our contributors, Frida Brambert Diawada and Mpho Rabasha, return to advise how this is best done and say it is often the parents who are more upset by this major change than the little children themselves. Welcome back. As occupational therapists, Frida and Mpho advise us on the best way to prepare children for a transition into formal education, better known as the first day of school. They begin by telling us exactly what factors are at play during such a time.
To start off with, we're choosing, or as parents, you're choosing an education for your child, and it's basically the best gift you can give a child. Their education will never be taken away from them. Knowledge will always be with them. It will empower them and basically lead them through their lives. So keeping that in mind, a first day at any new situation or any school can be quite daunting. So we need to basically think about the preparation phase, the actual day at school, the first day, and then the period close after the first day, so the first week or two, and of course leading on from there. So if we're looking at the preparation phase, we need to orientate the child, and we as parents need to, or you as parents need to orientate within the school environment. So you can go to school, you can walk around school, get the uniform, talk about the uniform. It's really important for them to label things. So these are all things prior to even that first day coming. You're already talking about all these new changes that are going to happen. You're going to talk about the teacher's name, you're going to talk about new friends that are going to be there, but also find out which friends from your old nursery school are actually going to the same school. So you can already know that you're not all alone, you're not all new, but there's even other children that you know as well.
And then even in terms of like getting the child ready, the school has to be ready for that transition as well. So they're coming from a nursery school setup where it's a lot of play-based curricula, and they're moving into formal education, which is like reception or grade 1. And that's a lot more structured, so the learning is different. The instruction modes are different in class. So is your child ready for that type of learning as well? So they will be expected to sit differently, like in the play-based curricula in the nursery. Spaces are open, children are running around a lot more, they're playing games more. But then in the primary phase, they're actually sitting at desks, they're expected to walk along in lines, they're supposed to line up for assemblies, so the structure is different as well. So the child needs to know what to expect and what the differences are with the new school that they're going to.
How does one prepare a child for the first day of school, taking all of that into account?
It goes automatically, really, because teachers and schools are very well prepared, and they are actually, it's their role to get the children used to the new routine. But as a parent and at home, you also need to adjust your routines. So on the day itself, when you're dropping your child, just make sure that your child has had a good night's sleep, they're ready, you've put your uniform ready for the day ahead, and make sure you're on time to drop your child, and make sure you're there to pick up your child on time. They've got lots of new experiences, the whole routine at school has changed, and of course, you know, they want to share their new day with their parents. So be on time to drop, be on time to pick up. And when you're dropping them, often it's more daunting for the parent to leave and let go of this child all of a sudden in a big school and big uniform and so on. But just leave them and let go. You need to just leave. Don't hang around, because that can again cause anxiety in the child, and so just let them be and leave, and then be back in time to collect them.
Yeah. We've acknowledged that it's most likely the parent who's going to need time to mentally prepare themselves not to fall apart when they drop off that child on that first day, and the child who's more likely to be the excited one. How can a parent thus prepare themselves for the big day?
I think just as the same as like preparing the child for going to school, the parent has to be prepared as well. Visit the school, ask questions, understand the setup of the school as well. Know that you're comfortable with the school and you're comfortable to send your child there. And in knowing that, then you can be more confident that it's the right school choice for your child. And then in being more comfortable with that, the anxiety is a bit less, rather than sending them to a school that you're not really sure of and you've got a lot of doubts about, and you're not too sure, the teachers aren't giving you enough information, or you've got a lot of doubts about. So you need to be clear that that's the right choice for your child, and that makes the anxiety a little bit less for you. But it's normal, you will feel anxious about it. It's the first day of school. So for you, it's a big emotional transition as well. So you need to be prepared for the emotions that come. So yeah, if you need to cry about it afterwards, do it, and it will take time for you to adjust, but it's the right thing for them to do, and you need to just be okay with it as well. So.
Welcome back. As occupational therapists, Frida and Mpho advise us on the best way to prepare children for a transition into formal education, better known as the first day of school. Other than tantrums and tears, what do we risk by not following such guidelines and better preparing children for big school? What could be the repercussions?
If you haven't prepared a child, if you come late, if there's all sorts of anxiety in the home environment, if it's not prepared, if you're not managing your time, your child is too tired, if there's all sorts of other things going on, the child will be tired at school. They might be suddenly reverting to an emotional state which is slightly more immature than that they're actually at. So it's really important to get that self-confidence going, and there's lots of ways to do that in that period after day one. So it's really all about establishing a routine, and then there's different factors within that routine that just come back every day. It's really maybe a good idea to visualize a schedule or a routine that you will stick to. It's clear to the parent, it's clear to the child, it's clear to whoever else is helping out at home. And one of the things, for example, is make sure you've got everything labeled. Kids tend to lose things when they have to get dressed for PE or for swimming. They need to find their own t-shirt, their own shorts, their own costume, their own towel. Get a bag which is big enough for their PE kit, for their towel, for everything that needs to go back and forth. So if you get a tiny bag, it's not going to be able to accommodate everything they need. And then another thing which is quite important is to get children into a habit of going to bed in time. Sleep is extremely important for learning, and actually the learning that takes place during a day is all processed when the child is sleeping. So if a child does not sleep enough hours, and we're talking about approximately 10 hours in that transition phase from nursery to reception, they need to be in bed on time so that they can get up early and they're fresh, and make sure they get up in time to actually have breakfast and to get themselves ready for school. But you can already do a lot of planning the evening before, so pack the bag with them, encourage them to get their own uniform ready, guide them in the morning to do as much by themselves as possible. Get dressed by yourself, try to put on your own shoes. There's a lot these days that is being done for the children, and in return then the children end up saying, look, it's not done because X, Y, or Z didn't do it for me. But we need to try and encourage children to become independent and functional, because that's important in school. They want children to be ready, quick transitions.
So if your child is one that's unprepared for it and doesn't quite know what to do, then they will find that quite negative as well. So the other kids are off running and they're all ready and they're still struggling there with their shoes. So it's always good to take the time to practice that. And like Frida said before, like if you prepare the night before, you know, you do practice a lot of that, putting the buttons on and putting the t-shirts on by yourself and putting the shorts on. The child becomes more independent and they can do it themselves more automatically. So practice those skills at home with them.
Parents really need to be involved in what's happening at school. So check the book bags, check what comes back from school. If there's a teacher meeting or orientation day, go to it, attend different things that are happening at school. Your child sees that you're involved, your child sees that you know what's going on, and it just reduces any anxiety. Because it's not nice if, you know, if there's a dress-up day and you're the odd one out coming in your uniform because mum forgot to read the letter. And you just feel really bad as a child, and it will just spoil the rest of your day and you'll start feeling different from the others. So if you're on top of everything, build a relationship with the teacher from day one. Go have a chat before, after, you know, talk to the teacher, find out how your child is settling down, and if there are any issues, deal with it immediately, just to get that whole transition a little bit easier. So the involvement of parents is quite important. And then the other thing, especially in that nursery primary transition, is language. So as young and little as they are, try to create some kind of a little environment in your routine where the child is doing their homework. They might just come back with a few words or maybe with a book, or you can go to the library and get a book, but sit with them and read every day. Talk to them, use a lot of language, ask questions, ask them what they did, what they saw, how it felt, because it's this stage where they're learning to listen to instructions, to take on instructions, and it's important to be able to use the vocabulary as widely as possible. And reading to them, not only does it bond you with your child, but it also brings about stories, and then therefore all the letters and sounds and all those initial foundation academics that they're learning in this early stage are also reinforced by you spending that quality time with the children.
When does the preparation for the first day of school begin? Is it days, weeks, or months before the actual event?
Even as early as, 4, you can do pre-reading skills, not actually like reading or writing. It's about the reading of the stories, the talking to them, the language development aspect. That's very important. So you can do that as early as possible. But the actual sitting down and encouraging literacy skills, we believe that that's age 6 and up. That's when you should really focus on reading skills, because that's when they're quite ready for that. Before then, you focus on the sensory motor skills, because that's how they learn. They learn through movement, they learn through sensory exploration, and that's where the focus should be. And then from 6 onwards, that's when the literacy skills should be encouraged a bit more.
Talking about attention and attention span, feed your child properly. So when we're talking about snack boxes and lunch boxes, it's, for your child to be able to sit through and focus, you need to have a solid diet, basically a balanced diet. So when you're packing snack boxes, make choices which are healthy. So pack a fruit, a sandwich, and stay away from sweets and crisps and fizzy drinks and Oros and all of those things, because it's not really sustainable and it's not going to actually help the child through the day, and it often does interfere with the child's focus. So if the child has had a big chocolate during break time, he's going to come back maybe more hyper, and it's going to be more difficult for him or her to settle down.
And it's just it's teaching them healthy choices and healthy living as well from a young age. They need to know what's good for them, what's not good for them, what they should eat. And if you start at a young age, like with the lunch snack boxes, you avoid the high sugary foods, avoid the fizzy drinks, and they need to learn to make those choices for themselves later on. Because if you're talking about the high obesity rates of kids these days, what's happened in terms of food choices and what they eat, they need to learn to manage that for themselves from an early age.
Welcome back as we continue to look into the do's and don'ts of getting your child ready for primary school to ensure a positive experience for all involved and a good start to what will be a long journey in formal education. Some children's overexcitement can change dramatically after some time, where you now have a child who kicks and screams at the very mention of going to school. What could be the reason and what can be done?
I think generally children or people are born to learn. Okay, so we're all wired in a way that we want to learn and that learning should be really exciting and so on. And if you have a sudden change in behavior or in attitude or in self-esteem, we need to then analyze and see, okay, what exactly might have gone wrong? Is there a bully at school? Is there someone who's ganged up? Is there someone who suddenly doesn't want to be my friend? These are all very big things in a little child's life. Did the teacher say something that I didn't understand and therefore I got in trouble? You know, there's all sorts of things that could lead to such behaviors. And sometimes, you know, from where they're coming from, nursery schools are all different. And they might have had a really bad experience being forced to maybe do something that they might have not been ready for. And then when it comes back, they revert to that initial experience. They're like, oh my God, no, I can't do this. And therefore, it's too challenging for them at that stage. But again, teachers should be able to pick that up and then figure out how to go about it. And all children learn differently. Some children might be more practical, some are more visual, some are more auditory. And you can already see that in the 4, 5, 6-year-old children, that some are more inclined to certain ways of teaching. And therefore it's really important for them to have that multi-sensory approach in a foundation phase, so that you can reach all the different learners and that they can all feel a sense of accomplishment and they can all feel really motivated and happy about things. But if the child experiences anything as too challenging, or from a social emotional side that something didn't work well in the playground, or they got scared of the PE teacher, or they got, you know, it could be any kind of stumbling block, and it might look really small in the eyes of an adult, but in that child's life it's huge, and we need to deal with it and attend to it and listen to the child.
And then sometimes it's just that, you know, that first week of starting big school, the excitement has worn off. You know, the first week is I'm going to big school, I'm going to big school, I'm a big boy or a girl now, and that's very exciting. And then once that's worn off, the reality kicks in now. I'm not a baby anymore, I'm not at nursery school, I'm at big school. And things are different at big school. And they're expected to do a lot more for themselves, they're expected to be more independent, a little bit more than nursery school. They're new rules, and they have to behave in a certain way in the classroom. And the lessons are longer as well. You're being taught maths and English and reading rather than just, you know, play-based with different puzzles and you're coloring in. So this is more structured learning, and the reality of that sometimes kicks in a bit. And for some kids who have some issues academically, that's when things start to turn around a little bit. So we're doing a math problem or we're doing reading, and I can't quite do that on the same level, and you can identify that. So that child will say school is hard now, and school becomes a bit negative because they associate school with that particular hard subject that they are seeing in the classroom. Yeah. So sometimes that's when it comes back to, I don't want to go to school anymore.
What do our guests advise that authority figures do in such an instance?
Same thing as before, just talking to the teacher, because it's about establishing what could be going wrong. So you need to talk to the teacher about what are you finding in class, what's going on, what do you think is the issue. And then if you identify a learning issue or a learning problem, that's when, you know, therapists come into play as well. You can do further assessments to see what is actually going on. Developmentally, are they ready for that kind of learning? Are there any delays? Do they need a bit of help, or extra tuition, or just extra encouragement, or just one-to-one more adult supervision in the classroom? So it's about identifying what the issue could be. And then socially, there could be something else going on there as well. Maybe they're not getting along with their peers, and they're not making friends as easily as they thought they would. All their friends are in a different school, they're having to cope with new people and new friends, and children do make groups of friends very easily as well, but some children find that very hard to access a group of children because they don't have the social skills to do it. So that's when they would need a bit extra help to cope with that change.
Welcome back. As in this final segment, we turn our attention to the performance of the Botswana Stock Exchange for the year ended December 2014. The BSE may be relatively small, but to date it is one of Africa's best performing stock exchanges, averaging 24% aggregate return in the past decade. This has allowed the BSE to be the third largest stock exchange in terms of market capitalization in Southern Africa. Deputy CEO Thapelo Theole fills us in on market performance, beginning by unpacking the developments within the Domestic Company Index, or DCI.
The DCI, or the Domestic Company Index, is actually an indicator of how the stock market in Botswana is doing. If it goes up, it shows that the market is doing better. Down, it shows that the market is not doing fine. And as of last year, the Domestic Company Index increased by 5%. And this is relatively not too bad when you compare it with other markets or the general performance of markets around the world, especially the emerging market. But when you compare it with 2013, you realize that it's actually a small figure because 2013 the market recorded about 20%.
Another major component is the FCI. Could you unpack that indicator for us?
Yeah, the Foreign Company Index, or the FCI, is an indicator of performance of companies that are doing business in Botswana, but they are registered they are coming from other countries, they are foreign companies. And in terms of performance, it actually declined by a marginal figure of 0.4%. And I think the FCI have been stagnant in terms of its growth or its decline since several years ago, largely due to the influence of the markets outside Botswana also. But as of last year, it was only down by 0.4%.
What of overall turnover for the Botswana Stock Exchange in 2014? How was overall performance?
If you look at the total turnover or the value of shares traded in 2014 in the BSE was about 2.17 billion pula. And this figure is less than the 2.3 billion pula that traded in the previous year, that is 2013. But it's surely one of it's the second best year for the BSE when you look at the historical performance of turnover in the BSE since 1989.
Next, our guest elaborates on exchange-traded funds, the likes of Beta Beta and the newly listed Nuplat.
As you might know, that we have about 3 ETFs, exchange-traded funds, which are actually funds that tracks up some underlying instruments. It either be a basket of shares or a commodity. We have 3 ETFs. We have New Gold, we have Beta Beta, which is top 40 companies in South Africa, and we also last year listed what you call the New Platinum, which tracks the performance of the platinum market worldwide. And with reference to the New Gold, the total trades registered last year was about 5.9 million pula. The Beta Beta had an outstanding year. It recorded a total turnover of 170.3 million pula. And then with New Platinum, I think it did very well also, considering that it only listed late in the year, around August, and it registered total trades of about 26.5 million pula in 2014, and which I think is a very good performance.
We thank you for your viewership and trust you'll be back next week as we look into yet another issue of interest. From me, Namezo Semakula, the team behind First Issues, and our sponsors, First National Bank, we wish you a good night and pleasant viewing.